All right. All right. So, welcome to this month's Powerhouse Team monthly team Zoom. Guys, I keep the Zooms to a limited amount, one Zoom a month. And this is the time that we come together. We celebrate our wins as a team collectively. And we have a guest speaker or a little bit of training that's going to make you better than you were found coming into tonight. And so, without further ado, I want to go ahead and start us off with some wins from this past month, this past quarter. One second here. iPad wants to go a little bit crazy. All right. So, guys, collectively last month we did around 315,000 net production. A little bit better than last month, guys, but we have some work to do. I know there's a lot of folks that are running for promotions, and so we've got some work cut out for us this quarter, guys. I wanted to go ahead and give a shout out to the top 10 year to date. I'm excited because there's some new names for the first 4 months of the year. And so starting in 10th place, we had Christy Smallwood taking the 10th spot, rounding out the 10th spot for the Powerhouse team. Tammy Havler, so excited for her. She went full time this past month, rounding out the 9th spot year to date. Sky Heiser in the 8th spot. Kristen Murphy, Casey Webster, Kathleen Ibis. And then we had Chris Houghton taking the 4th spot, Bryson the 3rd spot, Greg DiTomaso taking the 2nd spot, and the Tennessee Tornado. You'll always see the Tennessee Tornado to me. Miss BP taking the top spot. She's at 63,000, tracking for 189,000, averaging 15,000 a month. Greg D, same thing. They're only 200 AP away from each other. They're neck and neck. Okay, both around 15,000 average, tracking 189,000. Bryson, I'm loving it. Seriously. Over 54,000, tracking 13.5 on average. So you're tracking for the 40K incentive, on track for 162,000. Chris over tracking 132. Kathleen tracking 126. Casey Webster tracking 126 as well, going neck and neck with Kathleen. I love that. And then we've got, let's see here, Casey, Kristen, Sky. Everybody else is over tracking 41,000 so far. So congratulations, guys, on that. Also, we had some promotions that I wanted to go ahead and give some shout outs for. So last month, since we didn't do our team Zoom, we had our Builders Boot Camp. Tammy and Tanya hit promotions last month. Let's see here. We had a new sales manager. Chelsea Peak hit sales manager last week, sales manager 3. Guys, also for last month, we had the Titan team $3,000, a little over $3,000 away from hitting first month of RVP. That is huge. So if you're on the Titan team, that is huge. They're tracking. That's a big win. Let's see here who else that we've got. We got Tam. We had Christy hit her promotion, her first promotion this month. So a lot of good stuff on the horizon. I love seeing all of the momentum that we are building as a team. We had the men's qualifier. The men's qualifier that we ran the first 2 months, March and April. The numbers are out. And let's see here who hit the men's qualifier, which is going to be going down the weekend of May 19th through the 21st. Let's see here if I can find those numbers real quick. All right. So top 5 men for the last 2 months. We had Jake Tadlock coming in 5th place. I can't speak tonight, guys. 5th place. Ryan Britton taking the 4th spot. Chris Houghton, 3rd. Bryson taking the number 2 spot as the top 5 men on the team. And then Greg DiTomaso taking the 1st spot. So if you guys qualified and can make it down, that'll be at my house. It'll be golfing. It'll be boating. It'll be all of the things. I'll send that out to you guys here in the next day or two for that qualifier. We also have our annual 40K qualifier, 40K incentive that we run every single summer. Started last week. It runs May, June, and July. And that qualifier is going to be in Carolina Beach here locally this year. August, like I said, 25th or the 27th. And so I'm excited. And that is $40,000 average over the next 3 months. Earns you a spot for that. And then also, if you're a sales manager, you also have your own qualification if you want to make that. And those qualifications are going to be, it's 40,000 or 120,000 for SM3, 195,000 for SM2, and 330,000 for SM1 that you need to average over a 3-month period. And you can qualify for that as well. So that's exciting. Looking forward to this next quarter of fun things on the horizon. Let me see if there's any other announcements before we get started. One sec. Okay. Also, Ashley, she had a call on Tuesday all about momentum. I don't know about you guys, but if you're on that call, it fired me up. It got me thinking. And her slogan was, until we finish it. Until we finish it. And that stuck with me. I know that so many people have things that they're running for, whether it's personally or professionally. And so I want us to adopt that tagline, that slogan, until further notice, until we finish it. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever it is that you're going for, that is our team slogan, until we finish it. And for her, that's 400,000 submitted. She wants to get to 400,000 submitted. That is her goal for all Dreammakers. And so for us being a part of the Dreammakers, working with her to hit that as the Powerhouse team, we want to push hard. We want to do half of that. We want to show up and show out to where we're pushing for 200K. We haven't ever submitted 200,000 in a week. We've gotten close. I think the closest we've gotten is 175,000 and some change. Guys, we can do it. We've done it before, and that's our goal. Our until we finish it goal is 200,000 submitted in a week. And so I'm excited to see who runs for that. And it's going to be amazing. Let's see here. We got the 40K incentive, the men's qualifier. All right. So without further ado, guys, it is 8:12. I want to introduce you to our guest speaker for tonight. And I'm excited because he's been in the insurance industry for over 10 years. And I remember coming aboard and always looking up to this dude. We call him Daddy Davis, Scott Davis. And just to tell you, like I said, he's been in the business for over 10 years. When he came in, he was 49 years old. And when he came into insurance industry, his background was as an accountant, then turned used car salesman working with his dad, then turned junior partner of NASB. And so literally there has been almost every single industry he's kind of tapped into, right? And so I want us to dive into literally taking the last 10 years of his career here as an agent, as a sales manager, as an RVP, all the way up to junior partner, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of the lessons learned, all of the techniques and the tactics. And maybe there's 1 or 2 golden nuggets that you can take that are going to help you as a sales manager, as an agent, whether you're 90 days in, 2 years in, it doesn't matter. You can learn something to make you better. So without further ado, let me go ahead and welcome you, Daddy Davis, Scott Davis. So I have you.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay, Laura?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great.
Hopefully. I got you loud and clear. Thank you for having me on. I'm honored.
Absolutely. So kind of give us some background. Tell us, what got you into the insurance industry. I know you talked on the Friday call. I've locked myself out of my iPad. So give us a little bit of a synopsis to get you started.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've got an accounting degree from North Carolina State University. I originally planned to go to law school, was accepted to Campbell University. And, I kind of took a career path to become a corporate tax attorney. So, accounting degree, passed the CPA exam, accepted law school. And then at the last minute, I decided not to go. And so I graduated with an accounting degree, Laura, going, what am I going to do? I really didn't intend to do accounting. So I started in accounting, worked in that for 3 years. The best income I made was $28,000 a year. And I know everybody listening to this is going, gosh, that's it. And that's it. Right. Um, you know, knowing that accounting was not for me, I got fortunate enough, and this is a God thing, guys. Um, I was taking a training class for, I believe it was Excel, and I happened to meet the trainer of the sales side for Sprint for advertising. And he said, I think you'd be good at this. And I ended up getting the district manager's name that was in charge of North Carolina. And he said, just call him, call him, call him, and wear him out until he interviews you. So I did just that, but no sales background, right? So when I interviewed this guy, the last thing that I asked him, of course, I'm going to ask for the job. I told him, I said, you know, I really know I could do this job. I said, so much so, his name was Larry. I said, that if you're not completely satisfied with what I have done for you in the first 6 months, I will refund every penny you've paid me. And he said, you're hired. He hired me right there on the spot. So I did that advertising with Sprint for, gosh, I think it was close to 7 years. Enjoyed it, high stress job. And then my dad in retirement started a used car business just for something to do, not really to set the world on fire. But when you're someone in that business that's honest and do the right thing, man, people just pile to you. And his sales went through the roof and he needed some help. And so he called me and said, I know you've always wanted to get in business for yourself. Why don't you leave that? Come work with me. We'll own this together. And so we did that for 10 years. And anybody that's been in the car business, guys, you work a ton of hours. I mean, I was working 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90 hours a week. And, you know, and when you're working like that, Laura, you don't even have time to look for anything else. I mean, you're just in the moment, you're, you know, making things go. But God saw another path for me. You know, the last recession took our business completely under. And so, you know, I floundered for about 2 years trying to find something else. Had a great resume with a lot of sales experience, getting a lot of interviews, but no job offers. And I don't care what you hear, guys, there is age discrimination out there. Most of y'all are not even 49 yet, but, you know, I was 49 at the time, Laura, and they could hire someone out of college and pay them a lot less. And so there were no job offers, and I was running out of money very quickly. We racked up a bunch of credit card debt because I needed to stretch that savings out. And then I had a high school buddy that I played basketball with just call me out of the blue. And again, another God situation where he's looking after me. And he says, you really need to take a look at this final expense thing. And he explained about it being the perfect storm. And I'm not going to get into that because everybody here knows that, right? And so I did my own research, and sure enough, he was right. So I go get my license, but I didn't really have a company to go to work for. And so we started scouring the internet, the different ads. And I ended up starting, Laura, with a company that had free leads. And I'm going to use that in air quotes because there's no free lunch in final expense. We know that, right? So they started me on like a 50% commission, guys, with a 20% holdback. And, you know, the training was awful. I don't mind telling you the name of the company. It was Senior Life out of Thomasville, Georgia. So if y'all ever have a client that's got Senior Life and you need to talk to somebody that worked there, call me. I'll be glad to help you replace it. But at any rate, training was bad. You know, it just was, I was losing money. I wasn't making money. And they did a bait and switch on me, Laura, just like their leads were. They started me with these free leads and they said, listen, we'll switch you over and increase your commission by 20%. And we've got these TV commercials where seniors are calling in, you know, they're wanting life insurance, but the problem was all we got was a phone number and a name. That's it. And the senior wouldn't answer the phone. So I'm paying $40 a lead, and just losing my shirt. I ended up starting there in November of 2012, and I left about mid-December. And again, I'm shaking my head going, you know, God, what are you doing here? Because, you know, you led me this way and I failed. And so I remember, you know, we just kept praying. God, you gotta fix this. I know you got something in mind, but what is it? And then somebody with NASB, who's no longer with NASB, found my business card, and he called me. And I remember the conversation, Laura, like it was yesterday. He started talking to me about life insurance and the fact that he was doing it too. And I stopped him right there. I almost blew it, Laura, because I said, listen, if it's life insurance, unless it's 180 degrees different, we can stop talking right now. And he knew enough about senior life. And guys, if you're recruiting somebody with another IMO, you need to learn your competition, right? And so he started talking to me about captive, which I was, versus non-captive. And I really didn't understand the impact of that other than the fact I couldn't sell any other carriers, right? And he explained to me, he said, if you had been successful there and retire, you walk away with absolutely nothing. He said, but here we're non-captive, and this is what got my attention. If you're successful here, you walk away with something you can sell, or you can leave it to a family member and build that legacy, that generational wealth. That got my attention. And so I listened a little bit more. He explained about all the different insurance companies. I had one, big difference there. And Laura, I got to say, I don't think anybody before me or after me checked NASB out any better than I did. I took the entire month of January checking the company out. Because guys, the reason I did, Laura, was because if I got it wrong again, it meant I was going to lose everything. My house, my kids were in Christian school at the time. And, I said, Lord willing, I don't want to take them out. And that was more than my mortgage. And so how I checked the company out, guys, and I encourage new people to do the same when I recruit them, was number one, I hopped on conference calls. I was listening in because the company I left, Laura, there were only a couple of people making money, and they had a revolving door. They couldn't keep anybody. They were leaving, just like me. And so I was listening to conference calls. And back in that day, Craig Harvey did the roll call, right? Every single day, we celebrated the top agent. Everybody came off a mute and like, it was real loud. And I was listening to make sure that it wasn't the same people every day. And it was. And when I was listening to the roll call, yeah, there were some zeros in there. Nobody was scolded, but the vast majority of people were making sales, and they were making and selling more in a day than I could sell in a week.
Right.
And, so that got my attention.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I did was, I called Brian back and I said, listen, I want to get in somebody's car. If the system's half as good as you say it is, prove it. He didn't offer it to me, Laura. I asked. Okay. Now, I didn't know, and this is a blessing too, another God thing. Brian didn't go in the field. I mean, you probably heard Jordan talk about it. He would call a client if they had a bank account, they needed insurance, and he could pre-qualify them. He'd go see them. That was it. Didn't door knock, didn't do anything. So he puts me in Jordan Smith's car. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, right? So I go ride with Jordan one afternoon, and we get in 2 houses, sell 5 policies that day. And what really impressed me was the system, because of how methodical he was and how they asked for the help, because he did the thorough policy review, step 5, and they found out something was wrong and they asked him to fix it. When we got back out to the car, I said, Jordan, I know you've been promoted, but on a starting commission rate, how much would the advance money be? And so we calculated it, and Laura, it was a little over $2,000. And I hadn't made $2,000 in a day, and I couldn't tell you when. I said, let's go. So that's how I ended up finding NASB. Now, to paint a picture, guys, and I tell this story often, we had about $300 left in our bank account when I started with NASB. This is why I couldn't get it wrong. $300 left, and in about 2.5 weeks, I owed about $2,500. I didn't have it. So again, when a human being is backed into a corner, you've got 2 choices. You curl up and die, or you come out swinging. And I don't quit. And so I came out swinging, and I said, okay, Jordan, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Show me what to do. I'll copy you. And Laura, I actually copied the way he dressed. I mean, which is crazy, right?
Well, for
But
Jordan, because his style is a little bit, who popping the collar, wearing the pink shirt, not necessarily my style, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But that, I mean, there is so much good stuff of literally, following the leader, the person that you want to emulate. Are you willing to actually emulate them? I did have some rapid fire questions that I wanted to throw at you because we've got so many people on the call, whether they're new all the way up to running for RVP. And I want you to be able to give each person something that they can take away. So I'm putting a lot on you right now to really deliver. Okay.
all right.
But first thing is this. Okay. So you coming into the industry at 49, right? 49 years old. What were some of the things that were the traits that you had to have that made you successful, and then maybe a bad habit or a pitfall that you noticed that you had to let go of? Because self-reflection, self-awareness in this business is so crucial. So talk about that for a minute.
Well, number one, Laura, I already had the right mindset because I own my own business, right? Too often we hire people that have never been a business owner and we expect them to come in with the right mentality, and they don't have it. They've never had that experience. They're used to somebody, a boss, telling them what to do. And we have to hold their hand and kind of do that for a period of time to help them establish the habits. I already had that. So that wasn't a problem. I already had the sales experience, but I remember the very first day and that I was supposed to be out on my own. Jordan calls me about lunchtime and he said, "So how's it going? How many houses have you gotten into?" And I said, "None." And he said, "Well, okay, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm sitting at home and I'm studying these applications." And he said, "Wait a minute, who's paying you to do that?" And Laura, I had that light bulb come on and I went, "Nobody." He said, "That's why our system doesn't do that. I taught you how to approach. I taught you how to present. I taught you how to call me, how to shop the rates and write the applications." He said, "Go do it. You'll make money. I will teach you along the way." And he asked me, "Do you trust me? And do you trust this system?" And I did. And so day two, I just went out. I remember the very first policy I sold. I walked out to the car and I went, "Man, I can do that again." And, so my first month, Laura, I wasn't really keeping up with the deposits. My wife was, right?
Of course.
And I just kept my head down. And guys, the business with this, you've got to have the focus to be able to eliminate distractions. Now, you asked what I had to overcome. Well, my mom and my wife, they were my two distractions because they thought I had all this free time, right? My wife would call me during the day, "Honey, can you run by the hardware store and get this, or the grocery store and get that?" My mom would just be calling to talk. And I saw that quickly as a potential distraction. So that night, I went and printed a calendar out and I put it on our refrigerator and my mom's, and I had the time that I was working. And I said, "Guys, listen, if I was working in accounting in a cubicle during those times, you knew you couldn't call. So you can't call me during these times." So I said, "Unless it's an emergency and somebody's bleeding, don't call me." And that helped eliminate that distraction. My first month at the end, Beverly and I sat down, my wife, and she said, "Can you believe you've had $11,500 come into deposits?" And to be honest with you, I knew it was good, Laura, but I didn't know it was that good. Now, she was concerned about it being a roller coaster ride with all commission. She wanted to know it was predictable. And so she asked me one question. She said, "Can you do it again?" And then we go into March, right? My very first March, we have a March Madness, much smaller at that time. It was just the unit region. And here I am going against Hollyfield and Ken Robert and these titans that were selling big numbers. And I didn't have the belief I could do it. I'm like, "Jordan, I can't do this." He's like, "1 week at a time, just do your best." And I remember, I just kept plugging away and kept advancing. I ended up winning the whole thing. But I would say, I had the grit because I had to. I didn't have a choice. You know, and I've read so many times, guys, if you've got a plan A, but you've also got a plan B, you're planning for plan A to fail. I didn't have a plan B. And so, you know, it was all in for me. There were no ships to burn. I didn't have them. So it was, you know, sink or swim, and I chose to swim.
I love that. I love how your wife said, you did it once. That's pretty good. 11,000, you know, whatever. Great job. But can you do it again? How many of us have that to where you have that pressure on the other side, but also have the fortitude to say, hey, listen, here's my freaking schedule. Don't mess with the schedule if you want me to do it again the next week or the next month, you know? I love that. Now, let me ask you this. I want you to take us to a sales slump. Everyone has one. I remember my first sales slump. I was probably 6 months in. I had done pretty good. And then I kind of was like about to fail, to be honest with you. And I remember for me, Ashley told Craig Harvey, and Craig Harvey called me, you know how he likes to just randomly call. He doesn't text ahead of time. He doesn't do anything. He just calls you and he's in your face. And he's like, what's up, girl? Like, what's going on? Are you in a slump? Like, come on, what's going on? And I was so embarrassed because I was in a sales slump because I'd caused my own sales slump. I had gotten comfortable and complacent, and I didn't have the mindset yet to learn how to keep that even kill. But it was that uneasy, awkward call for me that embarrassed me just enough to where I never wanted that again. And I never wanted to show the founder of the company that I was someone that he was going to have to call about a sales slump. I just wasn't going to happen. And that kind of pulled me out, even though I was kind of frustrated with Ashley for doing it in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. So tell me about yours. What was yours where you fell into a sales slump? Maybe even tell us what level you were at and how did you overcome it?
Well, first of all, you know, you can't go into a sales slump, Laura, if you're not doing it at a high level. Okay.
Boom.
And number one, you know, when we reverse engineered what I needed to make, guys, I knew how much AP I needed to write. And my floor, Laura, was 6K a week. Meaning if I didn't sell 6K a week, I wasn't going to be able to make it. So, you know, I would stay out. I never wanted to work weekends, but my goal was so important to me that if I didn't have it by Friday, I went out Saturday anyway. Because, you know, bottom line is when you've got a goal, guys, the difference between successful and unsuccessful, the successful do it when they don't feel like it. They don't want to, but they know that they've got to do it. And so I remember, Laura, my first sales slump, you know, I told Jordan, I gave him this permission up front. I said, I do not have time to fail. I do not have time to get it wrong. You have 100% permission from me to hold me to this accountability level. If you see something I'm doing I shouldn't, tell me. If you see something that I'm not doing that I should, tell me. And so I gave him that permission because I couldn't fail, right? I didn't have time to. But I recognized my slump, Laura, in 2 days. And guys, you've got to be aware, you know, self-aware that when something's wrong, you don't let a week go by. A week can derail your month. A month can derail your quarter. A quarter can derail your year. And so I recognized the slump in 2 days, and I immediately called Jordan. Now, you might be asking yourself, and I want to say this, why was I going to Jordan as opposed to the guy that hired me, Brian? Well, I quickly realized, Laura, that Brian was not doing this at a high enough level of what I needed to do it at. So I went to somebody that had, because nobody can teach you how to do something they've not done themselves. And so I quickly went to Jordan, and we quickly analyzed the basics. What were the basics? Approach, presentation. And I found out, Laura, that I had shortcutted the presentation and didn't even realize it. And so Jordan quickly told me, look, Craig Harvey had the video at the time. Go back and watch that video twice a day. He said, watch it at night before you go to bed, watch it again in the morning, and you'll zero in on what you're missing, and you can focus on it on those days. And so I was able to come out of that slump pretty quick because of that. So I think it begins, Laura, or I know it does, with being self-aware that when something's wrong, you don't let a long period of time go by.
I love that. And I think that's crucial, whether you are at any level, whether you're in your first 90 days, you should be able to see if you're running the system like we're teaching it, you should be able to see that. Whether you're a sales manager 3, 2, 1, it doesn't matter. If you find yourself in an area where, something's not working, do you have the self-awareness? And then also, are you willing to go to your coach and be like, hey, listen, what's up? Pour into me. I love how you were going to them. You had that ownership. And then you also had gut me, not that they were going to do it in an ugly way, but you wanted that, I think that's amazing. Let's see. Another question I have for you. Biggest step in the presentation or in the system that you feel agents need to hone in on to be a six-figure earner? What was like the most important for you?
I would say, Laura, number one, Jordan had the same personality type that I did as far as connecting. What I mean by that is, guys, when we go through step one, connecting, some people are totally in their own skin to sit back and talk to the client for 10, 15 minutes and then move on. I saw Jordan do it the way I do, Laura, and he spent maybe 1 to 2 minutes there and he kept going. He moved right on, but he continued connecting through the presentation. And he don't even remember this, Laura, which is crazy, but he taught me step 2, living benefits, not credibility. Okay. The reason he did that was because he was so short at connecting step 1 that he needed the step 2 to be living benefits to continue to connect so that he could save them money or help them in some way they hadn't asked for. And so that connecting really resonated with me. So I did the same process, and we still teach that today. But more importantly, he made it crystal clear to me that you've got to nail step 4. If you don't nail step 4, guys, you're not going to sell insurance. And there's 2 things we've got to accomplish in that, and that's educate and cast doubt at the same time. If you only educate, you're still not going to sell. You've got to cast the doubt in their mind of what they've got. And I quickly copied Jordan on that, Laura, and people were running to get their policy even before I got to step 5. So I wasn't running into that problem, but I did learn from him how to continue to connect all the way through the presentation, how to ask the right questions, because questions, guys, they'll tell you what they need to hear in order to be sold. But I would say connecting in step 4 was probably my strength.
I want to kind of elaborate on that. I think you hit on something good, is that you were such a student with Jordan. What do you feel like it was? Was there a certain way that he taught it? Was there a certain way that he coached you, or was it a certain way that you saw Jordan that allowed you to notice the connecting for you to actually pick up on it and then implement and execute it?
Well, what's interesting, Laura, my training consisted of 3 hours with Jordan. That's it. And it was the initial ride along. Me watching the opportunity, right? But what I observed played such an impact on me, because I remember the first house we got into, there was a family. It was a husband, wife, and daughter. And the daughter and the wife was in the den, and the husband was up the stairs, down the hallway in the kitchen eating. And I had a bird's eye view of the husband, and Jordan was connecting with the wife and daughter so well all the way through it. He had them eating out of the palm of his hand. And, he gained the trust quickly. He didn't abuse it. He earned it. And that's important, guys. We got to earn that trust. But I remember, Laura, as soon as he transitioned to life insurance, the gentleman looked up from his plate, and here he comes. And, he's standing at the door, this big, boisterous man. And he's like, what is this all about? And the thing that impressed me the most about Jordan was Jordan kept his tone exactly the same. And he turned to the gentleman and started answering questions and pulling him in. And the next thing you know, that he found out the guy liked NC State basketball, and that's where I graduated from. So he came right in, sat down beside me, and we started talking, connected with him, and it just went forward. But he did 2 presentations that day, Laura, and I saw the similarities in both, but slight differences.
Mhm.
And, you know, when I went in to watch it, I went in with the intent to learn. And that's how I was able to pick it up.
Biggest thing, you went in with the intent to learn. How many of you guys on your first ride along, second ride along, third ride along, every time that your coach takes out of their work week to pour into you, to teach you again and again and again, how many of you are intent on learning again? Seriously, like that, if that's your posture, I think that is crucial, because you had that intent to learn and to learn from the person in front of you. You were able to actually take it in. And then not only that, as the coach, as the leader, as the manager, are you so practiced that you can keep your tone even keel? That someone that's coming in can watch you and see that you make it smooth as butter. Are you smooth as butter? Seriously. I think that is huge. Okay, now we're kind of getting into a couple extra questions. We've got 3 or 4 extra. We're going to round it out. So last question when it comes to selling, and then I've got a few questions when it comes to managing, is give us 1 or 2 of your favorite techniques that you have incorporated, that you, whether it's from Jordan or whether it's from just the last decade, 1 or 2 things that you're saying, hey, listen, this is a really great technique and this is where I use it.
Well, number one, Laura, I read a lot, and I think that's critical. I mean, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, I could go on and on, but I remember early on reading The Secrets of Closing the Sale, Zig Ziglar, right?
Mhm.
And Zig Ziglar talked about in this book, and guys, if you've not read it, it should be your sales Bible. He sold insurance as well as many other things, but he talks about different closing techniques. And I really adopted 2 of them. But more importantly, Laura, he talked about how people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. And it's a huge difference. And if you think in your mind for just a second, a bad buying experience, you walk away and you'll talk about it where the salesperson sold you something that you didn't really want, right? Whereas if you're an assistant buyer, they're really happy with their purchase because they want to buy, they just want somebody to assist them. So I quickly adopted some language in my presentation that when I would go to transition of life insurance and I would cover agent versus broker, kind of like Keith Thomason does, I would tell them, I'm not here to sell you anything. So you can put your money away. However, if I run into somebody that needs to buy, I will help you shop around to get the best for the least. And I saw the wall come down right away as soon as I started adopting that. And so I teach that transition statement because, you know, it's just a human fact. So I would say that's number one. Number two, Jordan taught me the 3 types of life insurance, right, Laura?
Mhm.
And he teaches that still today. Well, I had clients coming out with an accidental policy, and then I would start talking about it, and they're like, wait a minute, you didn't talk about that. Why would somebody design this accidental only policy? I was getting that question over and over again. Same thing with a graded plan, a Colonial Penn. You didn't talk about that one. So I quickly adopted the 5 types of life insurance. And I know Jordan scolded me for a while about that because he thought I was taking an hour to do step 4. I said, Jordan, it took me 2 extra minutes to cover those. But I wanted to cover them, Laura, because I wanted to be proactive instead of reactive. That way, when I cover an accident only policy, I can find a way to get their banking right there in a very non-threatening way because banks are selling it. By the way, Miss Johnson, who do you bank with? They'll tell you. Okay. And I didn't have to react because if they came out with an accidental only policy, I'd say, remember, we talked about this. Okay. Same thing with graded and modified. I would reference Colonial Penn because they've all seen it. and it would take me an extra 2 minutes. And by adopting that, I think that helped me keep my sales high, because for the first 3 years, guys, I averaged between 6 to 8K a week. I had some weeks higher than that, but I had to stay in that range, Laura. I didn't have a choice.
I love that, because this is the thing though, guys. It's once you learn the system, once you learn the presentation, it's like a script, right? If you're an actor, you have to learn not only the words that are on the lines, but everything around it, the scenarios, all of the things. Then you can green light. Then you have the ability to say, hey, I can actually immerse myself in the situation a little bit more, to where I can have my head on a swivel and see all entities that are going on, to where I can now even go further into my style, the way that I present, the way that I articulate, and make it the cream of the crop for me, right? But until you know the presentation, until you know the lines that work, don't try to think you know it all, baby, and try to redo it, because you'll have no results. You have to first show what Scott did, and he emulated to the T to what even Jordan was wearing. My God, right? I want what he's doing, so I'm going to do everything in my power to do that, so I can be good, and then I'm going to be me. I'm going to make it me, right? That is crucial. I love those techniques. Love it, love it, love it. Let's move on to sales manager as we kind of wrap up. So selling at a high level, 6 to 8,000. Okay. So you can't duplicate what you're not doing. That's number one. You can't duplicate what you're not doing. So if you want to have a high level producer, you got to be a high level producer. If you want to have high level teams, you have to have a high level team. Got it? Okay. So sales manager, how did you start building? How did that even come about? Like, what's up with that? How'd that happen?
Well, first of all, Laura, I started with NASB when they were only 7 months old. Okay. And I remember my second month in the field, it was March, and I'm beginning to advance in March Madness. It's called March Madness at that time, right? I got a call from Craig Harvey. Matter of fact, my very first day reporting my sales on the call, Craig Harvey calls me, and I get this call from Atlanta, and I'm like, who is this? But I pick up, and he's like, man, where do we find you? And he's just started talking to me and everything. And Craig and I became close friends pretty quick. But the second month, I remember Craig Harvey picking up the phone and calling me, and he's like, Scott, you can obviously do this at a high level. You're ethical. You do it the right way. We need to hire more people because we just don't have enough people. He said, I think you'd be great at being a sales manager. And Laura, I'd had such a bad experience being a sales manager with Sprint, because it meant more responsibility and less pay. And in the sales corporate world, guys, that's the way it is. And so I told Craig, I said, Craig, I'm flattered, but I'm not interested. About a couple of days later, Laura, I got a call from Chad Milner, same thing. And I politely declined again. This went on for about 30, 45 days. And then Jordan Smith calls me and he says, I need you to meet me for dinner. Jordan knew my why. Now that's important, guys. If you've never read the book, Start with the Why, you need to read that. Start with why. Jordan knew my why. And Jordan met me for dinner, and he started asking me why I was pushing back on this. And I just volunteered everything. And he said, Scott, it doesn't work that way. And he got into the system of building, and he said, you never have to look back. Your income doesn't decline. You love helping seniors. He said, can you imagine helping somebody sell and helping their family too? And boy, it really lit a fire in me. And I said, okay, let's do it. And, I started with Warm Market. I knew Amy Mason from another life, right? So I found Amy Mason, called her, and started, pulling my Warm Market in, which I exhausted pretty quickly. But I started building, Laura. I started February of 13. My first sales day was February the 1st of 2013. I didn't actually start building until maybe late April, early May. So it's about 10 years to the day now when I started building an organization. And I got to tell you, that's a whole new skill level.
Yes. I think that's so amazing to see because everybody's different. So I was like 9 months in and I was a lot like you. I was happy with just being a solid producer. I'm like, I got the skill under my belt. I'm doing good. I got this. And then I happened to replace someone's business with United Insurance, a company that comes and picks up your money. And she calls me and she's like, you can do better than I can do with these clients. Can you meet me to redo my policies? And I rewrote her and her 4 kids. And then she's like, well, if you can rewrite my policies, well, can I come work with you? And that's kind of how I started building. And then John lost his job and, you know, he was working as a custom home builder, was completely flat out up and down against life insurance, but he needed to make money. And in Wilmington, there was no jobs that were going to pay him $60,000, $70,000 a year. And so he reluctantly got his insurance license while his mother is sending him jobs to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. Okay. And so don't think because you're like, I am so ready that that's the way that it happens. Sometimes because you are a good sales rep, that doesn't mean that you have leadership qualities. Sometimes those things, I mean, all times they have to be developed, right? It's always a development, but it can happen. And it's here. And if you can get one skill set down, you can get another skill set down. It just takes the same time, energy, and investment internally. So let me ask you this. Okay, that's kind of how you started building. It was a couple months in. What areas came easy and what areas did you have to spend a lot of time in overcoming?
I think the areas that came easily to me, Laura, was I already knew how to connect with people. And when you get into building an agency, guys, we're in the people business. Insurance just happens to be what we're selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I've been accused of wearing the Dr. Phil hat a little bit, you know, solving some personal problems for people and then taking it off and putting the office hat back on. But that part came easy to me. The part that came difficult, and again, remember, I gave Jordan 100% permission to hold me accountable, and he quickly zeroed in on something I was doing wrong, and that was I did not know how to say no. What I mean by that, Laura, is anybody asking me for something, I would always say yes. And Jordan quickly made me aware of something, that when you say yes to one thing, you're automatically saying no to something else. And, you know, he made me realize that. So I started progressing, started reading, started understanding that. So I got better with that. The second thing was I wanted to be everything to everyone on my team. And what I mean by that is I would be out in the field selling and they would call me, Laura, for something they should already have, or something that they could call the carrier and go into sales support and get. And I would pull over on the side of the road, pull up my iPad, and I would send it to them. And Jordan saw that, you know, because we talked frequently, right? And he saw that and he said, Scott, you're fishing for them. You're not teaching them to fish. Y'all have heard the adage, if you fish for somebody, you feed them for a day. But if you teach them to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. He said, you need to show some tough love and direct them to call the carrier, direct them to where it should be. And that way they'll become more self-sufficient, because there's only one of you guys. And as the team grows, you can't do that for everybody. And so it made me aware of that. So those were the two things that I had to overcome pretty quickly.
And I feel like that's where a lot of people are. It's like finding your role, finding your niche, where you fit in, where you can help them the most. And I'm glad that, you know, again, Jordan he was going to tell you, you know, this is kind of where I bet there's a lot of people on the call right now that are doing that, you know, that are wanting to be the end all be all. But what you do for 15, you can't do for 55. At some point, there's only one of you, you know? I think that's really, really crucial to see. And when you make people self-sufficient, they actually do better. They have the ability to grow. They might not always get it or like it, but it actually gives them the ability to grow and to develop. Without it, they don't, you know? Okay. So great stuff. Any process or system that you feel yielded you results, whether it was in the beginning, it can be one or two rapid fire, because I got two more questions for you.
Early on, Laura, one of the things I did, I remember going to Ashley's house and watching her 3-day training. She allowed me to do that. First of all, guys, don't be too proud to learn from somebody else. I remember before Ashley Khalil even came on, I was here. You know, I'm not too proud to try to learn from somebody that has hit a level I've not already hit. But one of the things I adopted early on, because we were in North Carolina, Raleigh, right? Everyone that was trained, I would have them come to my house. I was already doing that, but I was doing it in a different way. It was more, and I did it in one day instead of like 3, right? They would leave with their head swimming, so much information, because they were trying to drink from the fire hydrant, right? So I adopted that system pretty quickly, and I just kept plugging away, because I remember Jordan kept telling me over and over, Laura, be the agent you want to hire. Be the agent you want to hire. So if you want them to write 3,000 a week, you write 3,000 a week. If you want them to write 6,000 a week, you write 6,000 a week, because you got to lead from the front. You know, because a manager sits back and tells somebody what to do. A leader's in the front saying, come on, let me show you, let's go. And, you know, so all along the way, I've always tried to demonstrate to not only the salespeople, but also the builders, you know, what they need to do by them seeing me do it.
I mean, that's important. I mean, if you want to have a system in place, put the system in place for them to plug into. But then also having, you know, not having the pride to where you can plug in and say, hey, what are you doing over here? Long as it's getting results and you have the blessing of your upline, take a look at it, you know? Okay. So take us through a building slump. Just like we have sales slumps, we have building slumps. Okay. And it's good for both the agent to know that their manager goes through a slump. And it's good to know that if you're on here and you are a builder, you're going to go through a slump if you haven't already. I'm guaranteed 99.9% of everyone has been through some type of slump. So talk to us about your builder slump.
Well, there's two that really come to mind, Laura. In the beginning, I would hire anyone that would fog a mirror. I remember hiring a young lady that was fresh out of the Army in Fayetteville. And she would not get on conference calls. She would not do our system. She kept doing something different. And the long story short is, you know, I didn't keep an eye on her, and she ended up leaving very quickly and rolled about 4 or 5 grand in debt. And I didn't blame Jordan, guys. What I did was I learned a lesson early on that you can complain about something when something goes wrong, or you can learn from it. And so what I chose to do the next day, Laura, was I sat at home for half a day, not a full day. I called every single insurance company that we've got, and I said, teach me how to monitor the team debt. And I learned how to do that because I didn't want this to happen to me or any builder on my organization ever like it happened to me. And so I immediately started monitoring debt. And what I would do, Laura, is if somebody had, you know, let's say on Omaha, they had $500 in debt, but they had 2 policies pending to cover it, that's a non-issue, right? But if I saw somebody that had $600 in debt with Omaha, but nothing pending, I would just shoot them a quick text message. Hey, I need you to write to Omaha this week. And then for the agent that you saw pivoting from this carrier to this carrier to this carrier, we would quickly cut them off, because it's better to eat 500 than 5,000, right? So I learned that was one of the first sales slumps that I did. And, you know, even to this day, you know, now I've got an assistant, and I taught her how to do that. And she sends this report out weekly to our builders so that they can monitor the debt and they don't have to eat that huge debt, right? That was the first one. The second one almost took me out. I mean, I called Jordan. I had just hit the top RVP level, and we had found someone that had a huge sphere of influence. I'm not going to call his name, but long story short, Laura, he ended up bringing on about 10 people just like that. I thought, man, we've hit it. We're going to, this was the end of 2019. We had just made the top RVP level. And I was planning to go right into the spring, or winter for January, February. We were going to make a run for junior partner. And guys, I had 15 people leave. 15 people left. One I thought was my best friend in this business. Laura, that hurt to the core.
I know.
I was hurt more because I thought this guy was one of my best friends and he left than, the other guys leaving, but they left. And I remember calling Jordan and I was like, Jordan, what am I going to do? And he used that same phrase again, Laura. What can you learn? Because you don't fail as long as you fall and you learn. And so I quickly analyzed everything and I saw a bunch of red flags that I had ignored earlier. And so it taught me how to avoid that situation happening again. It's not to say that it couldn't, but this individual, just so you guys will know what this red flag was, he made a comment a couple times when we were socializing that he was the chargeback king. Red flag, right? Number two, he was not as ethical as what we teach on our team. And number three, the guys and ladies that he was hiring, where we were trying to plug them in and help with the training, oh no, I've got it. And he kept them segregated away from the regular group. And it was very easy when he decided to leave to take them with him. And so that's what I learned from that. But that was that sales slump. And then we go into COVID of 2020. And I had already made my mind up that, and matter of fact, I told Craig Harvey this conversation, Laura, that when I hit partner, I want to win the Tortoise Award because it took me the longest to get there. But guys, if you don't quit and you learn, you can still hit your goal.
I love that. I remember having a vision board and I kept having to move my goals on my time frame. I was kind of, I had a little bit of like, I could sell at a pretty decent level now. It ain't nothing compared to some of these high level sellers now. I was over 130,000 and back then that was a really good thing to do. I could sell. And then I learned how to duplicate myself. So kudos to me. However, I still went through a 3-year lull, 3 years where I didn't progress. And I think sometimes every single person on this call forgets that you're not the only person that goes through a lull period. You're not the only person that goes through and loses clients, that has chargebacks, that loses agents. The world does not revolve around just you. It happens to everybody. If it happens to you, it's going to happen to the person sitting right next to you. And I had to move that date and I had to change my mindset multiple times. But again, if you fall down and you learn, you don't lose. Failure helps you in your successes. If you don't have failures, you don't know how to even appreciate the successes you have. It's so important. And it makes it that much sweeter when you do hit it because you have that much more perseverance and you have that much more wisdom, because in this business, wisdom is your best friend. Because if you don't know how to read people, read situations, read clients, you'll never get anywhere. So I think that is something that has been crucial for you over 10 years is, do I have the wisdom to see past where I'm at right now, to move forward in the direction I'm supposed to and with the right attitude, no matter how long it takes? That's the other word, is attitude. Do you have the right attitude, whether you're in the first 90 days, your first year, your first 5 years, if you've gone through a lull, if you've gone through a season, if you're in a good season or a bad season, do you have the wisdom? Because that's what makes a winner, is being able to see past that. All right, let's see here. as we finish up, it's 9:04. I appreciate your time. Let's see here. Okay. Last question. Any rapid fire tips or tricks that spark momentum or productivity for yourself or for your team?
Yeah, Laura, I'll have to go back to this run for junior partner because, I want people to really understand this because guys, Jordan talks about having to have 60 people to run for junior partner. And, we were in February. We had a great January, by the way. And we go into February and Jordan, calls me and he says, Scott, you need to run for junior partner in March and April. And I immediately fired back. I said, Jordan, you say 60 people. We don't have 60 people. We're way short of 60 people. And he said, don't discount a contest in competition. And so I said, okay, but Jordan, we don't have enough people. And I happened to share that with Fred Folston. And Fred has been a blessing to be able to work with, but he immediately told me, he said, Scott, wait a minute. Have you heard, I know you know this story from the Old Testament about Gideon. God told Gideon he was going to defeat this army, but he said, you're not going to get the glory for it. I am, meaning God's going to get the glory. He said, if you win right now, you'll get the glory because your army was substantial. And he said, what we're going to do is we're going to narrow it down. And he kept narrowing the army down till they only had 300 soldiers going against this massive army. And they won, and God got the glory for it. And Fred said, Scott, you're going to be Gideon. We can do this. You just got to let us do it. And, so I said, okay. He gave me the belief, Laura, that we could do it. So it started with that. And then one of the things that we did was we started monitoring the daily sales, right? And we had a goal thermometer. We had 150 that we wanted to write each week, and we would show the progression on that. And it really kept people motivated. And then someone on the team had the idea, okay, let's find out how much each agent needs to write in a week in order to hit that. And he encouraged them to do the hashtag, 5,700 to go. And then if they wrote 1,000, they put 1,000 down on WhatsApp and they'd say 4,700 hashtag to go, right? And that momentum just kept building and building. But guys, I want you to hear this. We got to the last week of March, Laura, and we're looking back at our trackers. And I called Jordan and I said, Jordan, it's just not enough. We don't have enough written to hit it. And Jordan looked at everything, and that's when he had the conversation. How many writers do you have? Laura had 34. And Jordan said, you're right. We're going to have to try for April. So he suggested that I focus that last week in March and push the sales that count for April to April. So we did. Then we got the March numbers and we hit 305. And I'm like, God, man, you are awesome. How in the world did we do that? Right. And so then we quickly regrouped and we just took it right into April. And in April, we did 318. And so, so I would say, the momentum of that just kept growing. Now we were hiring, we were getting new people on, and the last week in April, we had 44 writers. And so we had added 10 new people that were actually writing business by that time.
I think the biggest takeaway there is strategy. Number one, are you going to listen and are you going to be in good communication? And then are you going to have a strategy that you're implementing? And then not only that, because one person implementing a strategy doesn't make it. That took your entire 34 writing agents, 44 writing agents to implement the strategy and to run with you and to decide, hey, this is what we're doing. Guys, there is something so beautiful in that. It's amazing because that synergy, and that's what a team, we call ourselves a team. That's what a large team should do. Should band together like that, with the same strategy. You can't have 15 different strategies because the strategy should encompass everybody's goal. Your goal is no different than your AG3 that's running for their goal. They're together. And when you realize that your goals work together with the larger team's goals, that's when you can have this hashtag and this thermometer where you guys are running and everybody hits your goals. But if you try to, good luck. Good luck.
Laura, I don't know if you want me to go over the carrier strategy, but I'll be glad to do it because it works for all promotion levels.
Let's do it rapid fire. It's 9:10, 2
Okay.
minutes, and then we're going to end.
Okay. So guys, if you're running a 4-week promotion, right? First of all, you need to write the 2 carriers the first 2 weeks that count 100%, meaning we get true net numbers. That's Mutual of Omaha and Transamerica. Because if your team's chargebacks are less than 25%, that's going to be huge, right? So Omaha and Transamerica, the first 2 weeks, your third choice in those first 2 weeks is Foresters, right? Because Foresters takes a little bit of time because you got to get the email saying, hey, it's issued for it to count. When we went into the third week, Laura, we kept Foresters. We dropped Omaha and Transamerica, and we led with Foresters. But now we pick up the carriers that count when you get a decision on your iPad. That's Royal Neighbors, Great Western Immediate, and Americo Eagle, and even the HMS. And so we focused on those for the third week. And then when we went into the fourth week, we dropped Foresters and we kept Royal, Great Western Immediate, Americo, Eagle, and those were the 3 that we focused on. And we set up incentives, Laura, to encourage people to write those. But that strategy worked over and over and over again. So now we're implementing that to help agents hit their next promotion, sales managers hit their next promotion. And if you're strategic like that, guys, you can know where you stand. Also, Cameron Moose, real quickly, figured out the numbers, reported numbers, guys. If you multiply by 0.68, we were within $1,000 to $1,500 of the net. And so over and over again, we just watched the reported numbers and we knew where we were.
Okay, so your submitted numbers times 0.68.
Yep.
Okay, go into that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
What I'm talking about is not the gross numbers times 0.68. What I'm talking about is the reported numbers on our tracker. Because what we did, guys, is I took something that the Dream Makers had that I saw, Jonathan Jones shared it with me. Y'all got a daily tracker that y'all fill out, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'm a nerd. I've got Excel experience from all the accounting years. So I took that and I designed something so that when somebody enters their daily tracker, it rolls up to their team automatically. Their team rolls up to our team.
Mhm.
So I can pull up that Google sheet at any time and see where we stand.
Yep.
So we were looking at the reported sales, and we had gone back, Laura, and looked at about a year of this data, and we compared what was reported versus what was net. And every single time it was within $1,000 to $1,500 if you multiply 68% times the reported. And so I even called Jordan, and he accused Lance, I found later, of sharing the numbers with me, and I didn't have them because we were within $1,000, $1,500 of where we ended up in April.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, that's good. It's kind of like taking the 25% times 25%. It's kind of like you're going to get the same number. Love that. That's really good stuff. Really, really good. So I appreciate your time literally going over every level from the get-go to an agent, your struggles, your pitfalls, your wins from every level. I think that I got a lot out of it. And I know that if I got a lot out of it, then 1 or 2 other people hopefully got something good out of it. And so thank you. We're proud of you. Congratulations, Daddy Davis, for a junior partner. You've got a couple more to hit, because when we go big or we go home. And that's what I want everyone to incorporate. So thank you so much. Have a great night, Scott. Guys, just in closing, I hope this motivated you. I hope it encouraged you. I hope it developed you as we go into the next year or the next month, the next couple of months. Guys, if you're running for something, run. Take some of these things, incorporate see what's working, strategize to make your business move forward. Don't talk about it, execute. And remember, Ash is going for 400,000 submitted. We're going for 200,000. Tell me what yours is and send it to me. What is it that you want to hit? That's your thermometer, and we'll put it in to hit collectively. And just remember, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just that little bit of extra. Can you do that little bit extra that we're talking about? Can you go to that one extra house, that one extra phone call, that one extra podcast that you listen to that's going to make you just a little bit more well-rounded, that one extra coaching call, that one extra thought that you have the decision to say, hey, is this positive or is this negative? Is this going to move me forward or is this going to set me back? That little bit of extra. Let's have a great rest of our week and the great rest of our month. And I will see you on tomorrow's call. Ciao.